Hey everybody, I'm Lyle, Director of Financial Planning and Reporting at Topgolf Callaway Brands. Out of curiosity, how many folks here are directly in a financial planning department? Anybody? Great. So this presentation is hopefully very catered to you. When I go to conferences, I'm always looking for show me a real use case, a real example, and that's largely what this presentation will be today. Just so you know, again, the background of the company, my point of view, our usage, Topgolf Callaway Brands is a modern golf and active lifestyle company. The company operates in 3 segments. There's Topgolf. You probably know Topgolf venues, or many of you do. We also have golf equipment with the legacy Callaway golf brand. Big Bertha is a big product that most people are familiar with there. And then we have an active lifestyle division with Travis Matthew Apparel and Ogio. I'm sure there's corporate Ogio backpacks in the room right now. Over $4 billion in revenue, quite a few employees because of the venues and the retail stores. So Henner mentioned it for a second, but here's our journey with SAC for planning. We started in 2019, actually, pretty early adopters as far as SAC for planning. We built with the classic model type, and it was around cost center expense planning. We've now used it for several years, and at the end of last year, I guess it is, we partnered with SimpleFi, and at the beginning of this year, we kicked off a 3-month project to elevate and upgrade our financial planning models. We went to the new model type, which allowed a lot more functionality, so I would certainly recommend, if you're considering SAC for planning, to go new model type as opposed to classic. We did complete this project in June, and we're currently rolling it out across the company, group by group. We like the elevated user experience. We really like the Excel integration. And for us, we're a global company in many countries. The multi-currency was really important, and the new model type unlocked that. So getting into what we've built. We built 3 models. So one is employee cost planning, the other asset planning, and then we have a third model, which I call a hub expense model. It receives employee cost planning, and it receives asset planning, and it also is where we put in general expense planning, such as travel and entertainment, parts and supplies, utilities, etc. So that all comes together here in this hub expense model, where we can then run consolidated planning and reporting. SimpleFi built this for us, a landing page. So this is something I highly recommend. We were missing it from our initial 2019 build. This is a great place where you can see the 3 kind of sections correlate to our different models here. And we have input stories. We have reporting stories. You can see in the headcount side, we're even getting to kind of customizations by countries, so like US and Canada, Europe, China. Diving into one of the 3 models, so employee cost planning. This is centered around corporate workforce planning. We have a user base of both finance and non-finance users. So it works very well in that our non-finance users are able to self-navigate. It is a model that produces all employee cost calculations. So, as a department leader, you can enter a planned position, and the resulting calculations, right, will automatically flow through for you. We built it in kind of 2 silos, where we look at, okay, here's a load of existing employees. That for us, we're on workforce, so basing from workforce, bringing in workday data on existing employees, and then planned hires, right, department by department exercise there. Here are some of the key inputs for our headcount planning model. Existing employees, again, starting there, I've used myself an example. My employee ID goes in there, my name, I'm a regular full-time employee, my job title, and then my locale being in the US, in California. We've customized calculations to even cover like California state unemployment tax. You can choose how far you want to go. We've tried to go pretty specific. A user will enter in, these are existing employees. So again, coming in from Workday is going to be a higher month, a higher year. If applicable, maybe there's a retirement coming on. You may have an end month and an end year that a manager would put in. Salary, overtime, bonus, 401k. Planned hires, very similar, right? But we're going to create a unique planning ID for a planned hire position. Otherwise, all very much the same. Again, department managers are able to self-service in this. Here's a look at the system. So this is our actual production system screenshot, dummy data, of course. But hard to see there, but you got Mike, Joe, Kim, and Caden as existing employees. You can see again, there's their employee IDs, names, other information. And you can see here, as an example, I have an end date for Caden of October 2024. And again, the system is going to recognize that, respect that end date, and cut off employee cost calculation from that point. So very similar, but a look at our system for planned positions. Again, a kind of planning system number. In the future, we're interested in having this planned ID number auto-generated, but that will require some additional scripting. But here again, a hire date of December 2024, so the system will respect that they do not start until December. And then it will, as it has an end date that's far in the future, it will just keep going and going. With this model, the model administrator controls group assumptions via drivers. So, what is the Social Security tax wage limit? What is the Medicare rate? What are the cost of benefits? What is the vacancy rate? The PTO accrual rate? All of these are finance department controlled, so FP&A group controlled. The users don't have to worry about this, so to speak. There's a screenshot there of visualizing some of the inputs, how we're maintaining these drivers. And you can see we're doing it by company codes for us, by the locale. Here's California, for example. And then this is for regular salaried and benefit employees, this little snapshot here. A huge elevation for us was getting this multi-data action. So once we have planned our new hire positions or made adjustments to it, we then have this multi-data action button that SimpleFi taught us about and implemented for us, where it will calculate all the data, the amounts, and then transfer the results to our hub expenses model. So that's been really powerful for us. Back in 2019, we ended up with 2 buttons, which was not so great. A button to calculate, we had to wait for it to calculate, we had to save, we had to then push a second button to push it over. This multi-data action is much better, and we're very happy with it. So getting into our second of 3 models here, asset planning model. Okay, so for asset planning, this is covering fixed assets, and this is covering for us cloud computing arrangement implementation projects. We're able to flag what is fixed assets versus what is a cloud computing project. We have one model here from an architecture standpoint, but again, we think about them in 2 silos of our existing assets coming from an asset registry, and then adding on to that, what future projects, planned assets are we going to do. Here are just some of those key inputs and an example. So a Toyota forklift, let's start the depreciation in December. A 5-year life, a book value of $8,000. We're going to specify it as a fixed asset. It's not a growth project. And what we can do is put in an internal order number as well from our S4 or ECC system. In this case, I'm going to say not applicable. Hard to see on the screen, apologies for that, but the forklift is the second line in this screenshot. Again, taken out of our system. So asset ID for a forklift, it's PP&E, and then again, asset life and book value. Again, we have this calculation and multi-data action button for the asset. Planned assets, again, really similar. but this would be planned. Yeah, so here you do need to specify, a start date. So we have December for the lobby remodel, we have October for the warehouse fan, and November for the camera system. We are pulling from many asset registries, and then we are, let's see, what are we putting in there? In this asset planning model, we can also plan our capital expenditures. This applies to the planned assets only. Here, for those same example assets, lobby remodel, warehouse fan, camera system, this is just how we've planned the cash flow here. So lobby spending $15K in November, $15K in December, warehouse fan September, October, and camera system all in November. We can then, of course, query this data for all cost centers and pull together our capital expenditure reporting from this. I touched on this already, but again, we have this multi-data action button, and again, as far as the underlying calculations, a user doesn't have to worry about that. They just say, right, if they're planning an asset, just basically what's the life, when is it going to go in use, and the system will calculate the rest and push it over general expense planning. So getting into the hub general expense planning model, like I said, this is a central hub model to bring all of our cost center expenses together. It receives the calculated employee costs. It receives the calculated depreciation and amortization from the other two models. And then it has manual input for other general expenses, and in the case of adjustments, if sort of high-level adjustments are needed or exceptions are needed to be added. We created the optionality to input by statistical internal order, by vendor, and by a kind of free-form detail. That free-form detail could be anything. Perhaps you're planning to engage with a new vendor, but you don't have a vendor number created in your SAP system yet. You could just create a custom name there for temporary planning purposes. It could be anything, marketing, event, etc. There might be better uses of statistical internal order and vendor when available, but we do like this custom detail because it gives ultimate flexibility when there is not a SAP number to work off of. Of course, when we're in planning, we're usually before actuals, so sometimes we are ahead of those numbers. Again, this model gets us to total expense reporting. Here's a look at just one of the SAC stories on the reporting. Very basic, but this is just almost like a quick kind of validation, quick check type report. On the left side there, you can see we have our cost element groups going down: employee costs, travel and entertainment, software licensing, parts and supplies, depreciation and amortization, and other miscellaneous expenses. We then have that detail dimension I talked about, where you can plan by any name, statistical internal order, by vendor, and then data source there, that last column. So what you would see, I don't have it displayed, but if we opened employee costs, for example, you would see that employee cost is being transferred over from the other model. The same with D&A. What we can do now is we could layer some additional employee cost adjustments in this model at a cost element, cost center level if you had a need. One thing you might do is you have a general pool for signing bonuses, perhaps. That could go here. Or for, those type of one-time events and adjustments. The same for D&A. If there's something unusual, you could do manual input here. You will see by data source whether it's a manual input or if it was transferred over from the asset model. Here's a similar story, but this is a story that we can actually input the planning into. It's not a bring it all together story, so this is only manual input. This is not, what we won't say here is data transferred from the other planning models. In this example, if you look at software and licensing there on the screen, I'm drilled down into computer software cost element. And then I'm planning on vendor here in this example. You can say I have Microsoft and I have SimpleFi Solutions here, and I can plan very specifically like that. And And then I can, what I'm going to be able to see, and you just can't see it in the screenshot because this is kind of a dummy screen, but I could get my actuals against my planning, right, for SimpleFi Solutions. And my group is finding this very powerful for department expense planning. We really like the Excel integration with these new models. So again, I said, when I come to these events, I really want to see what people have, what did they build, how does it work. So a little bit of quick detail here. You're going to get an SAC add-in on your Excel right at the top right of the ribbon there. It's as simple as you have the URL, you sign in and hit go. You then have a choice. You can add a table to retrieve that data and present that retrieved data, or you can add a data source which will then allow you to write connected formulas. And I think there's good use cases for both, but the formulas are something new for us from SAP that we really like them in this system. But hitting the table first, here's just some screenshots of what that can look like. When you insert, you're going to get that kind of design panel in the middle there. With a table, you can either have planning enabled or turn it off, meaning you can just retrieve data. If you turn it off, you can just retrieve data. If you turn it on, you could actually write data back to the model. But the table's what I think a lot of us are very used to. Right at the table, you can drill down on, in this example, cost center, cost element, amounts. Pretty standard. And this is what I'm used to in reporting. We've used analysis for Excel for a long time, and so what we would do there is we would insert this sort of table, and then we would have presentational tabs in Excel where we would do lookup formulas basically to that table. So this is kind of continuing that, but now it's in all in one system essentially, right? This planning system where we can plan and immediately see the results here against our actuals as well. So going back for a second, we're loading actuals I think every 2 hours, right, Michael, to this system. So we have pretty up-to-date actuals here against live planning. So the other option with the add-in is you add a data source and start writing connected formulas. And I'm a huge fan of this, and very powerful for us and quite game changer, really. Some screenshots here. I mean, on the left, just kind of that design panel where you can do some filtering. But what I've found is you can actually leave it quite wide open, and that tends to be convenient. So far, I've not run into performance issues with our data as far as leaving that open. And then you can start using, for reporting, this SAP.getData formula to just build some very customized reports. So here I'm looking at a particular cost center. I'm looking at our cost categories, employee costs, travel, etc., and by month, right? And what you can see on the right there is I've written this SAP.getData formula where I'm referencing that I want to get USD. I want the amount in USD. I want it for this particular cost center. I want it for employee costs. I want it for actuals, and I want it for January 2024. And then that's the same formula across the entire table. The power here to me is we're no longer referencing a data tab, right? So we've gone away from Excel being a data storage solution, which Excel is not great at. And we're truly using the SAC model as that data storage solution. And now we're able to visualize it. You can visualize it through a web story, or you could visualize it this way. Being in FP&A and in corporate expenses, this is a way we're going to frequently do it. And it works very well for us. Also, as a formula, you can do SAP.setData. So this is now going to be about writing data up to the planning system. So, earlier you saw a web interface where a user can input planning through a web interface. This is now just another way that we can input data into the planning system through Excel. For a visual, you can create this is not a real table. These are just columns of data. But you can create something like this, which is a very structured way to do it. And this essentially will allow a mass upload. I hate to use the word upload because we're not talking about a CSV file or any, import job or anything like that, but you can create this kind of customized rows and columns where you can then put this set data formula in there and just write up a mass amount of data to the system. So there's a lot of flexibility with this function here to do planning at different levels. You could, one user could be writing up a single piece of data just quickly. Another user could be uploading like an entire company code or an entire group, right, in this manner. So really, there's a lot of flexibility. It's almost all up to your imagination. Wrapping up, nothing crazy here, but just the basics of, I can tell you that we achieved success with SAC for financial planning. That was a big thanks to SimpleFi on getting there. We're really happy with where we're at now. SAC does work for employee cost planning, it works for asset planning, it works for general expense planning, and it works for total expense aggregation and reporting and planning. Definitely use SAC Excel add-in. We really like that as an FP&A organization. And a call out is, there's a lot of ongoing flexibility to continually, refine and add and enhance your models. And we fully intend to continue doing that. So I mentioned scripting earlier. I know there's a lot more opportunity where we can bring scripting in and just create even more seamless user experience that everybody's going to embrace. The thing about SAC, at least the way we're using it right now, is we have multiple options. So again, we're a global enterprise, and not every company code has to do it the same way. And so we still have some groups, in fact, who are not on Workday yet. So there's a lot of flexibility here as far as how we get that data in. The short is yes, that's our intention. Right now, we have a couple ongoing sales planning projects, basically. Building Jack Wolfskin is one of our apparel and outdoor brands. They're creating a sales planning model right now, encompassing revenue, and they hope to encompass some margin planning there as well. There's a couple initiatives there. What my group hopes to build is more of an all-encompassing, financial planning model where we bring together full net revenues, right, full gross margin, and go all the way through the P&L. So we haven't quite timelined it all, but these are ongoing open discussions right now. And right now, we do believe SAC is the solution we'll move forward with for all of that.